I stared at the cream-colored envelope that someone had slipped under my door. My stomach doing that weird flip it does when you know something's not quite right. No name, no return address, just my apartment number written in precise, angular handwriting. My name is Tessa, and until this moment, I'd been having what I thought was the best month of my life. My fitness blog had just hit 100,000 subscribers, my relationship with Nolan was getting serious, and I was finally going to meet his family this weekend. Well, officially meet them. But this letter changed everything. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the same precise handwriting. If you care about your future with Nolan, be careful around his mother. She's destroyed relationships before, and you're next on her list. Don't say you weren't warned. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking more with each pass. The paper felt expensive, the kind you'd find in a fancy stationery store. My phone buzzed, making me jump. Nolan's face lit up my screen. "Hey, beautiful, just checking in about Saturday," his warm voice filled my ear. "Mom's really excited to meet you properly." I swallowed hard, crumpling the letter in my free hand. "Yeah, about that. Please tell me you're not backing out," he said, that edge of anxiety creeping into his voice. "You know how important this is to me." I glanced at the crumpled warning in my hand. No, I'm still coming. Just nervous, I guess." "Don't be. They're going to love you." "Well, Drew already does. He won't shut up about your workout videos." I forced a laugh, but my mind was racing. Drew, Nolan's younger brother, was the only family member I'd met so far. He'd seemed genuine friendly. Could he have sent this? "Tess? You still there?" "Sorry, just thinking about what to wear," I lied. "Your mom seems traditional. I want to make a good impression." There was a slight pause. "Just be yourself. That's who I fell in love with." After we hung up, I smoothed out the letter and took a photo, sending it to my mom. Within minutes, my phone rang. "Have you told Nolan?" Mom asked, skipping hello. "Not yet. I don't want to start drama before I even meet his family." "Honey, this is drama. Someone's trying to warn you." "Or mess with me," I countered, but my voice lacked conviction. "Maybe it's just a prank." "That paper is Crane and Company, I'd recognize it anywhere." "That's not prank material, that's serious money." Mom had worked at a high-end paper store for years. "Someone from their social circle sent this." I sank onto my couch, the reality of the situation hitting me. "Mom, what do I do?" "You go to that dinner. You watch, you listen, and you trust your gut." "But Tessa." Her voice got serious. "Don't show your hand. If someone felt strongly enough to warn you, there's a reason." After we hung up, I pulled up the Fisher family photos Nolan had shown me. There was Meredith Fisher, his mother, elegant and poised in every shot. Her smile never quite reached her eyes, especially in the photos with Nolan's previous girlfriend. Come to think of it, I'd never heard why they broke up. My phone buzzed again, a text from Drew. "Fair warning, Mom's planning to go full Martha Stewart on Saturday. Hope you're ready for the 3rd degree about your internet career." Grinning face with sweat. I started typing a response, then stopped. Was this his way of warning me too? I looked at the letter again, then at my phone. Everyone was trying to tell me something without really telling me anything. Well, game on, Meredith Fisher. If she wanted to play puppet master with her son's life, she was about to learn I wasn't the kind of girl who danced on anyone's strings. I just hoped I wasn't making a huge mistake by walking straight into whatever she had planned. The Fisher house loomed before me, all red brick and pristine white columns. I smoothed my dress for the 10th time, wishing I'd worn something less fitted. Next to me, Nolan squeezed my hand. "Ready?" he asked, reaching for the brass knocker. Before he could touch it, the door swung open. Meredith Fisher stood there, perfectly coiffed in a cream cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "You must be Tessa," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "We've heard so much about your internet activities." I felt Nolan tense beside me. Mom, Tessa's fitness channel has over 100,000 followers. She's built a real business. How fascinating, Meredith replied, stepping aside. Though I always thought personal training was more of a hobby than a career. The warning letter flashed through my mind as I followed them into a living room that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything was pristine, controlled just like Meredith. Drew appeared from the kitchen, grinning. Hey, the famous Tessa. Mom, did you know she was featured in Women's Health last month? Was she? Meredith's voice could have frozen water. I must have missed that issue. I prefer more traditional publications. Throughout dinner, every compliment came with a barb. My healthy eating tips were trendy fads. My business model was risky. Even my wine choice earned a raised eyebrow and a murmured, "How modern." So, Tessa, Meredith said as she served dessert, Nolan mentioned you grew up in Rochester? With just your mother? Yes, after my dad passed away. Oh, how difficult that must have been. Her sympathy dripped like poison honey. Although I suppose that explains your need to be so independent. Nolan suddenly became very interested in his creme brulee. Actually, I said, maintaining eye contact with Meredith, my mom taught me that independence isn't about being alone, it's about choosing your own path. Indeed. Meredith set down her spoon with a delicate clink. Though in my experience, family traditions provide a much more stable foundation than experimental lifestyle choices. Mom, Drew interrupted, didn't you say you wanted to show Tessa the garden? Of course. Meredith stood, gesturing for me to follow. Nolan, help your brother clear the table. In the moonlit garden, Meredith stopped by a rose bush. These have been in the Fisher family for generations. Spring, they bloom exactly as expected. No surprises, no disappointments. They're beautiful, I said carefully. But sometimes unexpected growth can create something even more spectacular. She turned to face me fully. Let me be clear, Tessa. My sons are my life. I've guided them, shaped them, protected them from unfortunate influences. I won't see that work undone by someone who thinks life is a series of Instagram stories. Mrs. Fisher. Please, she cut me off with a razor smile. Call me Meredith. We're practically family. For now. Back inside, I found Nolan in the kitchen. Your mother just threatened me. What? No, she wouldn't. She basically said I'm not good enough for you and won't last. Nolan ran a hand through his hair. That's not what she meant. Mom's just traditional. Give her time. Traditional. I laughed incredulously. Nolan, she's actively trying to undermine our relationship. You're being sensitive. She's making an effort. Like hell she is. My voice rose before I could stop it. Everything okay in here? Drew appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. Fine, Nolan said quickly. Tessa's just tired. We should probably head out. In the car, the silence was deafening. Finally, I spoke. You're not going to stand up to her, are you? There's nothing to stand up to. You don't understand our family dynamic. You're right, I cut him off. I don't understand how you can let her treat people this way. But I'm starting to understand why your last girlfriend left. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. That was different. Was it? I stared out the window, the anonymous letter's warning echoing in my head. Or was she just smart enough to get out before your mother destroyed everything? Nolan didn't answer, and I realized with crushing clarity that I was on my own in this battle. But Meredith Fisher had no idea who she was dealing with. If she wanted war, I'd give her one hell of a fight. Comments started appearing on my blog 3 days after the dinner. First, they seemed random criticisms about my form, questioning my credentials, suggesting my advice was dangerous for impressionable young women. But as I scrolled through them, a pattern emerged. A proper lady maintains dignity, not followers. Some traditions exist for a reason. Family values are more important than fleeting internet fame. Comment echoed Meredith's words from dinner down to her exact phrasing. I was checking the IP addresses when my phone buzzed, Drew calling. Have you seen Mom's browser history? He asked without preamble. What? I borrowed her laptop to check email. She forgot to clear her history. Tessa, she's been watching every single one of your videos, reading every blog post. She's obsessed. My hands started shaking. The comments. Probably her. Listen, there's more. Remember Caroline, Nolan's ex? Mom did the same thing to her. Started with small criticisms, then escalated to contacting Caroline's employers with concerns about her character. Caroline quit her job and moved to Seattle. I sat down hard. Does Nolan know? He suspects, but Mom's good at playing victim. If anyone confronts her, she breaks down about how she's just trying to protect her family. A notification popped up on my laptop, another comment. Some people mistake attention-seeking for success. Sad to see young women led astray by social media validation. Drew, she's going to try to destroy my business. I know. That's why I'm warning you. But be careful. If you confront her, she'll make you look like the aggressor. After we hung up, I pulled up my latest video. Comment section was flooded with new criticisms, all in that same proper, cutting tone. My phone buzzed again. Nolan. Hey, can we talk? Mom's upset about something you posted? I laughed incredulously. You mean the dozens of nasty comments she's leaving on my content? What? No, she mentioned a video where you're apparently promoting unhealthy body standards. She's worried about your influence on young women. Are you serious right now? Your mother is actively trying to sabotage my career, and you're buying her concerned act? Look, maybe if you just talk to her. I did talk to her. She threatened me in her garden, remember? The garden you refused to believe she threatened me in? Silence on his end. Then she's just protective. Stop making excuses. I was shouting now. Your mother is systematically trying to destroy everything I've built, just like she did to Caroline. And you're letting her. Don't bring Caroline into this. Why not? Because it proves I'm right? Because you know exactly what your mother's capable of and you're too scared to stand up to her? The doorbell rang. Through my apartment's peephole, I saw Meredith Fisher herself, perfectly composed in another expensive sweater. Nolan, I have to go. Your mother's here. What? No, wait. I hung up and opened the door. Meredith smiled that razor smile. Tessa, dear, I thought we should have a chat about your recent content choices. You mean the content you've been obsessively commenting on? Her smile didn't waver. I'm simply expressing concern about the message you're sending. As Nolan's mother, you're terrified of losing control. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Something flickered in her eyes. Fear? Rage? You don't understand our family. No, I understand perfectly. You destroyed Caroline's career to keep control of Nolan. Now you're trying to do the same to me. But here's the difference. I stepped closer. I'm not Caroline. And if you want a war, I'll give you one. Are you threatening me? No, Meredith. I'm promising you that if you don't back off, I'll expose exactly who you are. To Nolan, to your precious social circle, to everyone. Her composure cracked just for a second. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Now get out of my apartment. After she left, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely text Drew. Your mother just showed up. Things just got real. His response came quickly. Check your email. There's something you need to see about Mom's past. I opened my laptop, my heart pounding. Whatever Drew had found, it was time to turn the tables on Meredith Fisher. I met Drew at a coffee shop across town, far from his mother's usual haunts. He looked exhausted, sliding a manila envelope across the table before I could even sit down. "I found these in Mom's study," he said quietly. "In a locked drawer behind her desk. Inside were newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. The headlines jumped out. Local woman missing after domestic dispute. Search continues for Margaret Fisher. Fisher family maintains silence on disappearance." Margaret Fisher? My hands trembled as I spread the clippings across the table. Our aunt. Mom's sister. Drew's voice dropped lower. The one nobody talks about. The articles painted a disturbing picture. 25 years ago, Margaret Fisher had vanished after a public argument with her family. Police investigated but found nothing. Case went cold. "There's more," Drew said, pulling out a stack of letters. "These are from Margaret to Mom, sent over the years. Mom kept them all but never responded." I scanned the letters. They were desperate pleas for reconciliation, each one more heartbreaking than the last. What happened between them? Drew glanced around the cafe before answering. Margaret fell in love with someone the family didn't approve of. A woman. Mom couldn't handle it. She threatened to expose Margaret to their social circle, their father's business partners. Back then, it would have ruined everything. So Margaret left? She chose freedom over family. Mom never forgave her for breaking ranks. Drew's hands clenched around his coffee cup. That's when Mom started. Controlling everything. She was terrified Nolan and I would leave too. My phone buzzed, Nolan calling again. I declined it. Does he know about any of this? Drew shook his head. Mom told us Margaret died in an accident. I only found out the truth when I found these letters. That's why you've been helping me. The realization hit hard. You don't want history repeating itself. Mom's already destroyed one family. I won't let her destroy another. He pulled out one final letter, newer than the others. This came last week. Margaret's in Seattle now. She's been following your blog, saw you were dating Nolan. She wants to meet. My heart pounded. Does Meredith know? No, but... Drew's eyes widened, focusing on something behind me. Shit. I turned to see Meredith Fisher standing in the doorway of the cafe, her face white with fury. Our eyes met across the room. Drew, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the quiet space. What are you doing? Mom, are these my private papers? She approached our table, each step measured and precise. You broke into my study? You broke into my life, I shot back, standing to face her. Harassed me online, threatened my business. To protect my family. Her composure cracked. You have no idea what's at stake. I know about Margaret, I said quietly. Color drained from her face. You don't know anything. I know you drove your own sister away because you couldn't control her. Just like you did with Caroline. Just like you're trying to do with me. Mom, Drew stood too, Margaret's alive. She wants to talk. Enough. Meredith's hand slammed down on the letters. These are private family matters. Which makes them my business, Nolan's voice cut through the tension. We all turned to see him standing there, holding his phone. Drew called me before you arrived, Mom. I heard everything. The look on Meredith's face, shock, betrayal, fear, would have been satisfying if it wasn't so tragic. She grabbed for the letters, but I was faster, snatching them away. Your choice, Meredith, I said softly. We can all talk about this like adults, or these letters go public. Margaret's story, Caroline's story, everything. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I met her gaze steadily. But first, you need to tell Nolan the truth. All of it. Cafe had gone silent, other patrons pretending not to watch our family drama unfold. Meredith looked from me to her sons, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Finally, she sank into a chair, her shoulders sagging. I was trying to protect you, she whispered. No, Mom, Nolan said firmly. You were trying to control us. And it stops now. The Seattle rain matched my mood as I waited outside the small cafe where Margaret Fisher had agreed to meet. After the confrontation with Meredith, everything felt raw, unfinished. Nolan hadn't spoken to his mother in days, and the silence was deafening. A woman approached, and I knew immediately it was Margaret. She had Meredith's elegant posture, but her eyes were kinder, less guarded. She wore a rainbow pin on her jacket, a small act of defiance that spoke volumes. You must be Tessa, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for meeting me. Inside over coffee, Margaret studied me carefully. You look shell-shocked. I remember that look. I used to see it in the mirror every morning before I left. Did you know about Caroline? I asked. The girlfriend before me? I followed the Fisher family drama from afar. Meredith's patterns are predictable. She pulled out her phone, showing me a social media profile. This is my partner, Helen. We've been together 23 years. Longer than Meredith's been pretending I'm dead. My phone buzzed, another text from Nolan. We need to talk about Mom. I ignored it. Why reach out now? Because history's repeating itself, and I'm tired of watching from the sidelines. Margaret leaned forward. But also because you're different. You're fighting back. Not very successfully. You got my nephew to finally stand up to his mother. That's more than anyone's managed in decades. She paused. But there's something you should know about the night I left. Before she could continue, the cafe door chimed. Drew rushed in, looking panicked. Aunt Margaret? His voice cracked. Mom said you were dead. Margaret's composure wavered. Hello, Drew. You were so small when. Tessa, Drew cut in. Mom's at your apartment. She's threatening to call your fitness certification board with concerns about your methods. She's spiraling. My blood ran cold. She wouldn't. She already has the number pulled up. Says if you don't back off about Margaret, she'll destroy your career. Margaret's face hardened. Some things never change. When I left, she threatened to out me to every potential employer in the state. Did she follow through? I asked. No. 'Cause I left first. Disappeared completely. Margaret's eyes met mine. But running isn't the answer. It just gives her more power. My phone buzzed again, Nolan. Mom's losing it. Please call me. I need to stop her, I said, standing. Wait. Margaret grabbed my arm. There's something else you need to know. The night I left, Meredith didn't just threaten me. She threatened herself. Said she'd rather die than see the family name ruined. I thought she was manipulating me, but what? I found her with pills. That's why I left so suddenly. I couldn't bear the guilt if so I disappeared instead. Let her tell everyone I was dead. It was easier than facing the truth, that my sister would rather die than accept me. Drew sank into a chair, face pale. Mom tried to. She's not evil, Drew. She's broken. Terrified of losing control because she never dealt with almost losing everything. Margaret's voice softened. But enabling her fear isn't helping anyone. My phone lit up with a text from my mom. Meredith Fisher just called me. Says she's concerned about your mental health. What's going on? Pieces clicked together. Meredith wasn't just attacking my career, she was trying to discredit me completely. Make any accusations I made sound like the ravings of an unstable person. I have to go, I said, gathering my things. But first, Margaret, would you be willing to come with me? To see Meredith? After all these years, to save her from herself, and maybe save this family in the process. Margaret stared at her coffee cup for a long moment. The last time I saw my sister, she was willing to die to maintain her perfect facade. What makes you think this time will be different? I pulled out the anonymous warning letter that had started everything. Because someone in this family cared enough to warn me. Someone wants this cycle to end. Drew's eyes widened with recognition. The letter. Mom wrote it herself, didn't she? Part of her wants to be stopped. Margaret stood, straightening her jacket. Well then, let's go stop her. Together. As we left the cafe, I realized we were either about to heal this family or tear it apart completely. Either way, there was no turning back now. We found Meredith in my apartment, sitting primly on my couch like she owned it. The certification board's number glowed on her phone screen, her finger hovering over the call button. When she saw Margaret, she dropped the phone like it had burned her. No, she whispered. This isn't. You can't be here. Margaret stepped forward. Hello, Mir. Don't call me that. You lost that right when you abandoned this family. Like you abandoned me? Margaret's voice cracked. When you chose your reputation over your own sister? Meredith's hands started shaking. I was protecting us. You were protecting yourself, I cut in. Just like you're doing now. But look around, Meredith. Your perfect family? It's falling apart because of you, not me. You don't understand, she said, standing. None of you understand what I've sacrificed. We found the letter, Drew said quietly. The warning letter about yourself. You wanted someone to stop you, didn't you, Mom? Color drained from Meredith's face. I didn't. Yes, you did, Margaret moved closer. Just like that night with the pills. Part of you has always been screaming for help, Mir. I just didn't know how to hear it then. Suddenly, Nolan burst through the door. Mom, what are you? He froze, seeing Margaret. Who? Your aunt, I said softly. The one your mother erased. Meredith lunged for her phone. This ends now. I'm calling the board. I'm calling everyone. I'll tell them all what kind of person you really are, Tessa. How you turn my family against me. Mom, stop. Nolan grabbed for the phone, but Meredith jerked away. In the struggle, she stumbled, catching herself on my desk. Papers scattered, and something fell, the framed photo of my father and me taken just before he died. The glass shattered. Everything stopped. I stared at the broken frame, at my father's smiling face behind spider-webbed cracks. You know what's funny? My voice sounded distant, even to myself. I actually understood you, Meredith. Losing my dad made me understand why someone might be terrified of losing their family. Why they'd do anything to hold on. Tessa. Nolan started. But this. I gestured at the chaos around us. This isn't protecting family. It's destroying it. And I'm done. What do you mean, done? Nolan asked, fear creeping into his voice. I mean I'm done fighting. Done trying to prove myself worthy of your family. I picked up the broken frame. My father taught me that love shouldn't hurt like this. It shouldn't leave you broken. You're leaving. Meredith's voice held a note of triumph. Just like Margaret. Running away when things get hard. No, Meredith. I'm not running. I'm choosing peace. And if that means walking away from someone I love because his mother would rather destroy me than accept me, I looked at Nolan. Then that's what I have to do. Tessa, please, Nolan reached for me, but I stepped back. When your mother threatened your aunt's happiness, you lost a sister, I said to Meredith. When she threatened Caroline's career, you lost your son's trust. Now you're about to lose him completely. Is your control worth that much? Meredith sank onto the couch, her carefully constructed walls crumbling. I just wanted to keep your family close? Margaret finished. Look how well that worked. I grabbed my keys and jacket. I'll be at my mom's. You all figure out what kind of family you want to be. But I won't be your casualty in the process. Where are you going? Drew asked. To pick up the pieces of my life before your mother can destroy them completely. I paused at the door. You know what's ironic? That warning letter? It wasn't just a cry for help, Meredith. It was your last chance to choose love over fear. And you failed. Again. As I walked out, I heard Meredith start to cry deep, broken sobs that spoke of decades of pain. Part of me wanted to turn back, to help heal this broken family. But sometimes I realized walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the only way to force people to face their own demons. I just hoped Nolan would understand someday why I had to go. 3 days after I walked out, Drew called. Mom's in the hospital. She took pills. The world tilted sideways. History repeating itself, just like Margaret had warned. I found myself running down sterile hospital corridors, the antiseptic smell burning my nose. Nolan stood outside the room, looking lost. She left this for you, he said, holding out an envelope. Inside was a yellowed letter dated 25 years ago. My dearest Meredith, it began. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The shame of your father's gambling debts, the loss of our social standing. I can't bear it. Protect our family name. Never let anyone tear apart what remains of our legacy. Love, Mother. She found this after her mother's suicide, Nolan said quietly. The day before Margaret told her about Helen. Pieces clicked together, Meredith's obsession with control, her fear of scandal, her desperate need to maintain appearances. She'd been trying to prevent another family tragedy, but had nearly caused one instead. Margaret appeared from the room, eyes red. She's asking for you, Tessa. Me. Says she needs to show you something. Inside, Meredith looked small against the white sheets. On her lap lay a familiar cream-colored envelope, the warning letter I'd received months ago. I wrote it, she whispered. The morning after Nolan told me he was bringing you to dinner. I saw myself in you. Your independence, your strength. Everything I gave up to become what my mother wanted. Why warn me, then try to destroy me? Because you terrified me. Her hands trembled. You were everything I could have been if I'd been brave enough. Like Margaret was brave. I thought if I could break you, prove you were weak, you'd prove you made the right choice all those years ago? She nodded, tears falling. But watching you fight for your place in this family, watching you refuse to break, you showed me what real strength looks like. Not control. Not manipulation. Just truth. Mom, Nolan stepped forward. Why didn't you ever tell us about grandmother? About any of it? Because admitting it meant facing what I'd become. What I almost drove Margaret to. She reached for her sister's hand. What I almost did to myself. Twice. The pills, Margaret said softly. Both times you weren't trying to die. You were trying to feel something real. Meredith's facade cracked completely. I'm so tired of being perfect. Of being strong. Of being her. I moved to the bedside, taking her other hand. Then stop. Be yourself instead. I don't know how anymore. Yes, you do, I said firmly. You showed me when you wrote that warning letter. When part of you tried to save me from you. Can you ever forgive me? That depends. Can you forgive yourself? For Margaret? For Caroline? For everything you've done trying to be someone you're not? She looked at her sister, then her sons. I want to try. I want to be real again. Then let's start with the truth, I said, pulling out my phone. All those nasty comments on my blog? You're going to apologize. Publicly. Show everyone that Meredith Fisher isn't afraid of admitting her mistakes. A flash of the old fear crossed her face, but then, surprisingly, she laughed. You know what? That sounds liberating. Drew appeared in the doorway. The doctor says Mom can go home tomorrow. If someone stays with her. I will, Margaret said. We have 25 years to catch up on. Meredith squeezed my hand. I tried to break you because I was already broken. But you helped put this family back together instead. We're not fully fixed yet, I said, looking at Nolan. But maybe now we can try. For real this time. As I left the hospital that night, I realized sometimes the greatest act of revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's helping them become who they were always meant to be. 6 months later, I stood in the Fisher Garden, watching Margaret and Helen help Meredith plant new roses. Different varieties this time, wild, unpredictable blooms that would transform the precise rose into something more natural, more real. Still can't believe Mom's hosting Pride Brunch next month, Drew said, joining me. Helen's already planned the menu. People can surprise you. I smiled, remembering Meredith's public apology video on my blog. It had gone viral, sparking conversations about family acceptance and mental health that reached far beyond our little drama. Nolan appeared from the house, carrying the restored photo of my father. The frame was different now, less perfect, more interesting. Like us. Mom found this in the attic, he said, handing me a small box. Inside was a pressed rose and another letter, dated the day after I'd left the hospital. Dear Tessa, it read. I spent my life trying to be the perfect mother, following a script written by my own mother's fears. You showed me that real love doesn't follow a script. It adapts, grows, sometimes blooms in unexpected places. Thank you for helping me find my voice again. Love, Meredith. She wrote it that night, Nolan explained, but was too scared to send it. And now she's learning that scary things can be beautiful too. He took my hand. Like us. We'd taken things slow after the hospital, rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. It hadn't been easy, real things rarely are. But watching Meredith laugh as Helen taught her to deadhead roses, seeing the genuine joy in her face, made everything worth it. Caroline called last week, Drew mentioned casually. After she saw Mom's video, they talked for hours. Really? Mom apologized. Actually apologized, not just that passive-aggressive sorry not sorry thing she used to do. He grinned. Caroline's coming to Pride Brunch too. Meredith approached, dirt on her designer gardening gloves, looking more alive than I'd ever seen her. Tessa, dear, would you help me with something? In her study, she opened the drawer that had once held Margaret's letters. Now it held something else, a stack of cards and letters from people who'd seen her video, sharing their own stories of family reconciliation. I answer each one, she said softly. It helps somehow. Knowing our mess of a family might help others find their way back to each other. It's not a mess anymore, I said. It's just real. Because of you. You could have destroyed me, exposed me. Instead, she touched the letters gently. You helped me destroy the person I was pretending to be. Best revenge ever, I teased. She laughed, a real laugh, not the polite society chuckle she'd once perfected. Indeed. Though I do miss my perfectly ordered rose garden sometimes. No, you don't. No, she agreed, smiling. I don't. Outside, Margaret and Helen were teaching Nolan some complicated dance steps on the lawn, while Drew recorded it all, probably for his new family history project. Not the sanitized version Meredith had once maintained, but the messy, beautiful truth. My phone buzzed, a comment notification on my latest blog post about family healing. From Caroline, thank you for breaking the cycle. Some traditions deserve to die so new ones can bloom. I looked at Meredith, who was watching her family with tears in her eyes. Ready to go make fools of ourselves dancing? God, yes, she said, linking her arm through mine. It's about time I learned some new steps. As we joined the others on the lawn, I realized that sometimes the happy ending isn't about winning or losing, about revenge or forgiveness. Sometimes it's just about finding the courage to plant different roses and see what grows. And in the Fisher Garden, everything was blooming wild and beautiful, just like us.